again, Jesus having both natures shows us something else as well. That if we are going to experience salvation, if the cross is to have any power at all in our lives, then what we need to have, what we need, or rather we needed to have a perfect and infinite God die for us. It could be no other. It couldn't be Joe Johnson around the corner there dying for us, because then we wouldn't need Jesus at all. If I could pay for my own sin on the cross, I wouldn't need Jesus. If I could pay for somebody else's sin, then you wouldn't need Jesus. But because we're sinful and he's not, that's what makes the difference. You see, it took a perfect, infinite person. Jesus is perfect, never sinned. And he's infinite, always existed. We were created, he wasn't. And so, again, it took him to die for us on the cross. He is the perfect one. He is the infinite one. And we are the imperfect, and we are the finite ones. This also shows me something else, that Jesus has both these natures, because it shows us that all mankind is made in the image of God. And that means there are no races that are inferior or superior, because we're all made in his image. Again, what a way to see things. I mean, well, especially in our time today, when everybody, or rather when certain parties are so focused on racism, which is non-existent, by the way, because there's not different races so much as there's different ethnicities. We're all of the one blood. There's only one race, and that's the human race. And that's what we all belong to. And so, again, when everybody's focused on these kinds of things, the color of your skin and all of that, we should remember to turn around and to be focused on God's grace, and focus on the fact that he made us, all of us, in his image. So we're a reflection of the image of God. And that's really what we should be looking at. When we're looking at the image of God, then we're not going to be prejudiced against one another. We're not going to put down one another. We're just going to look at each other in that way. We're all made in his image. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So notice the government will be upon his shoulder. The full meaning of this will come in the millennial age, when Jesus comes and he sets up his kingdom on the earth. It'll be an awesome time of peace. It'll be an awesome time of justice. Again, we'll be there, but we won't be as those who are living on the earth. We'll be kings and priests. We'll be keeping law and order for the Lord, ruling over certain cities and things like this. Making sure that justice is swift when sin is committed against another. And so again, that's what we'll be doing there. But this will be his kingdom. He'll be ruling and reigning over it. It'll be an interesting time, to say the least. Now, again, it's what we need today. We need to have Jesus reigning in this life, though. It might be hard to see. We can see this today, but it might be hard to see, especially with our government. And that's because his government will be in stark contrast to our government and any government in the world. And why do I say that? Well, because of these things. First of all, politicians today are only looking out for what they can take. That's what they're looking for. It's always interesting how somebody like Nancy Pelosi is suddenly this trading guru and things like this. And so, again, she's making millions of dollars off of inside trading. And so it's so crazy to me. But they're only looking out for the money. But Jesus, on the other hand, is looking at what he can give. He's not looking at what he needs to take. He's looking at what he can give. Because Jesus wants to give us all things. Politicians surround themselves with people who will serve them, but Jesus seeks to serve us. Leaders today are looking to build their empire and legacies, but Jesus is seeking to build you up. Leaders today, as I said before, have their eyes on the money, but Jesus is seeking to give. That's what he wants to do. He wants to give. He gave himself. The more important these leaders get, the harder it is to reach them. Have you ever noticed that? They're unreachable. Jesus was Emmanuel, God with us, and is always available for you and me. So, how do we see the government upon his shoulders today? What kind of examples do we see that's going on? Well, let me suggest that whenever we see someone leave a sinful lifestyle, it's because he knows Jesus and he is now governed by God. That's how we see the government on his shoulders. Whenever we see people caring for orphans, widows, and strangers, we know that they're governed by God. Whenever we see people who are repentant, eagerly learning the Word of God and rejoicing in their worship of God, we know that they're governed by God. Whenever we see people leave great paying jobs to go into ministry and to share the gospel, we know that they're governed by God. Again, this is how we see God's government working. It's working in us and on us. That's how we see the government on his shoulders. And so again, this government may not be working as well as it should be, but we can make it better when we let God govern our lives. This is the importance of applying all of these things that we promote, and to the way we engage the community, to the way that we engage these different things. I think the greatest travesty of the church is that we stayed out of politics. We stayed out of running for mayor or running for the city council or running for the school board or things like this, or even running for president. I think it's the greatest mistake that the church has made. Because when we're governed by God, then the world is better off. The country is better off. The state is better off. The city is better off. The church are better off because we're governed by God. And so I think it's something that we ought to think about and begin to practice. So all of that in the first half of verse 6. Now we go to the second half of verse 6, which is Christmas has other names. So notice what he says here in the second half of verse 6. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Now notice Isaiah says, and his name will be called Wonderful. What a name to have. Could you imagine having that kind of a name? Hey, Wonderful. How's it going, Wonderful? Hey, what's up, Wonderful? You know, again, what a great name. I mean, just amazing to me. Now, that word wonderful means more. It means it really points towards, it rather has more to it, as it points toward God's anointed continuing the marvelous acts of God. And that's exactly what Jesus did. He continued the marvelous acts of God. It also means extraordinary to the point of being miraculous. And that is exactly what Jesus was. He was extraordinary to the point of being miraculous. In the book of Judges, we get a glimpse of Jesus add humanity to himself. In Judges chapter 13, verse 18, we see him mentioned here. And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" And so this is what we call a Christophany, or where it's a manifestation of Jesus before he was human. He would also be called Counselor. Now, this has nothing to do with therapy. He's not there to be your therapist or your social worker. But instead, it means one who advises, who serves as a consultant to help and lead others. He is a mighty counselor. Jesus should be the one that we run to in our times of trial and tribulation. Not the psychiatrist, not the psychologist, but Jesus. Not the professor in school, but Jesus. When we're dealing with these problems, everybody thinks that the world has the experts. They have the psychologists because they have the PhDs. They have the psychiatrists. They have the counselors. They have these things.